All right, a very good morning to you, and you're very welcome along to Off the Ball AM this morning. As ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can use Twitter, the hashtag OTB AM, or you can get us on the comment section on YouTube, or you can listen to us on the website now, offtheball.com. There's an audio-only feed if you're driving, and we want you to be safe these mornings. You do these shows, and frequently you don't hear anything from anybody out there, but you mentioned you spent 65 quid on a Christmas tree on yesterday's show, and you get contact from everybody. Andy Lee, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
Where do you stand on the real Christmas tree versus fake Christmas tree?
I'm a real Christmas tree man, yeah.
And how much do you think they should be?
I don't know.
Mine was 65 quid.
Where did you get it?
In Marino.
All right, yeah. I think it's a fair price, I suppose.
I don't know. I couldn't work it out. Dave guessed 40 yesterday. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought.
So. Yeah, I thought, maybe close to the 50.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Have you got yours yet?
No.
Wait, too early?
Mid-December.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like you got to get value for this now. You got to sweat the asset on a daily basis.
Yeah, get you 65 euros worth.
I know, yeah. Right, there's loads coming up on the show today. Obviously, Andy's here. We're going to talk boxing, and there's a million boxing stories to talk about. We'll chat about his debut as a coach with Eric Donovan. We'll also talk about the massive super fight that's happening this weekend between Guillermo Rigondeaux and Vasily Lomachenko. Katie Taylor and Michael Conlan also in action. Conlan this week and Katie Taylor the following week. Paul Flynn, the Dublin footballer, has done a really interesting interview with Joe, which is going to go out on the radio tonight. There's a couple of clips of that which we're pulling for you this morning, and we're going to speak with Kenneth Egan a little bit later on in the show as well, because it's about his career choices and how he ended up getting to the point that he's at the moment. And just interesting to see Ken Egan talking recently about how you can't get a mortgage with a silver medal. So also going to talk about Spanish football and how Atletico not doing so well at the moment. They're obviously in action tonight, and they'll have no Diego Costa because of the transfer ban imposed on Atletico, so he won't be able to play against his former club as they go looking for a place in the Europa League. So it's a busy show, and as ever, if you want to get in touch, as I said, do get in touch. I'm looking around here. There it is. I was like, the belt has moved. So this is the North American Boxing Association, WBA.
Yep.
What's this one?
I won that in, I think it was 2011. I fought a guy called Alex Bonima. And it's basically the WBA's version of the North American title, so it covers Mexico and Canada and America in the US,
And they have those as kind of eliminators. So
they get you ranked in the top 10 by that governing body.
Yeah.
And that night we fought for the WBO version, no, the WBC version and the WBA version of this belt. And I beat him over, I think it was 12 rounds in Chicago.
Is that your first professional belt?
No, I'd won the Irish belt.
Okay, yeah.
But this was my first belt in America, yeah.
And so it must have been pretty important. Like, when the belt thing is happening, are you like, okay, this is a good belt, but I want a great belt? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
They when I won them, they asked me to bring them down to the Cronk gym after, and I was a bit, sheepish, bringing down two NABA belts and like NABC belts, because the lads are coming down regularly with world titles, and I'm walking around with these two Mickey Mouse things, but
they all had.
But I was still proud, and to be fair, they probably made more of a bigger deal than I did. But it was nice.
You got to celebrate the little victories along the way, though, don't you?
You do.
And is that what they were doing in a way? It was like, listen, you might feel a bit sheepish about this, but actually, everybody else has like.
Yeah, I think when you're younger, and especially me, and I think with other people as well, you're very hard on yourself, and you don't really. You're always looking for the next thing, the next one, But as I got older in boxing, and fights that I would win, I'd just scrape by, I'd appreciate them more, and fights that I was really meant to win and won them, I enjoyed them,
Yeah.
Where before those type of fights, I'd be like, that was just meant to happen. I got to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
But no, I think with age, you do appreciate the small victories.
Well, if you think about that, then like if there's no enjoyment after you win these fights, then that whole kind of 4-month build-up is almost really for no sense of. Yeah. And so the next time you do it, it's like, oh Jesus.
No, but it's like it's just another step on the another step on the ladder, and you just it's a part of the journey up, But, later on, you do learn to enjoy it. Yeah.
Would you've changed that now in retrospect? If you could go back and give yourself a bit of 18-year-olds?
Yeah, well, I told someone said it to me when I was having those type of fights. Those fights that you're expected to win, and it was Monty Barrett. boxing people would know him. We were in training camp together. He was a heavyweight from New York, and he said to me, we became very close, and he just said to me, enjoy these fights, because when you look back, these will be the best fights of your career. Like, when you look back, these will be the ones you won't enjoy, but you said you should have enjoyed. And now that I do look back, they actually were.
Because you're the favourite going in, and everybody's...
It's all, and everyone's geared towards you, you know? And a lot of times you're traveling, and you're in another town. Well, I was in America, and you're in some other town. You were fighting. It was every few weeks you were fighting, and it was like a roadshow, you know. Yeah. Like a tour. But it's similarly. I ended up saying I say the same thing to young fighters now, and I said it to Ryan Burnett, because he's very obsessional about his preparation, especially when he was younger. And I was trying to just calm down, you know. I was trying to tell him, and. Only the other day said to me, Andy, you were so right about that, you know.
About enjoying it?
Yeah, enjoying it. And I can see now he's relaxed a lot more in his approach, especially with his weight. Yeah. And he's relaxed a lot more, but I don't know. I think it's just something that comes with age and experience.
I guess it is. And, like, it's such a difficult lifestyle where if you feel like you're not doing stuff, then you'll get into the fight and you're thinking, oh, geez, I didn't do that thing. Yeah. But if you've obsessed about it, at least... It's finding that weird balance.
Don't have any doubts when you're in, you know, when you're stepping in, or have those little thoughts of I cheated here, or But when you're that young, and every fight is important, you know. The next fight is always the most important moment. Yeah. So I don't know if you can really fully relax. Like it's well in hindsight, but you know, when you're actually doing it,
it's not like if you make a screw up on the show, there's another show the next day. It's or in 10 minutes time there's an ad break. It's like you just got knocked out.
That's well, and in boxing a loss is just set you back, you know, two years maybe in your career, and you're kind of written off. So
and it can cost you an absolute fortune. Yeah, for sure. Let's take you through the newspapers now. Some good stories in the papers today, and it looks like there's a big signing from an Ulster perspective, and maybe this is a sign of things to come. It's a story about Geordie Murphy. Geordie Murphy to renew relationship with Kiss and Gibbs in move to Ulster. So Geordie Murphy, obviously part of that back row at Leinster, which is festooned with international quality talent. Ulster are struggling a bit at the minute to generate their own players coming through. And it turns out that Geordie Murphy, according to Jerry Thornley in the Irish Times today, is going to be heading there at the end of the year. It's funny when the Irish players kind of move provinces, because we always assume that, like, it means so much to them. But ultimately, it's a job.
Yeah, and probably from, you know, with us being ingrained in GAA, and you know, your parish, and you play for your county kind of thing, it's not. You know, when someone moves, it's kind of you know,
it feels like an aberration.
More eyebrows are raised, I guess. But it'll probably become more frequent now.
Definitely, and it's worked out so well for anybody who's moved so far. Generally, it's worked out pretty well. Like, players establish themselves, play loads of games, get back into the Ireland setup, and I'm sure Joe Smith is delighted because somebody else is getting full-time. He's going to be a starter, probably guaranteed, when he heads to Ulster. Let's take a look at the Irish Examiner back page, or rather the front page of their sports section this morning. Selection headaches, Mourinho hoping Zlatan will be ready to face City. And then waiting game, Peter Mahoney's contract talks to be decided by January is the story there. And then Dr. Tyke McIntyre has done a report in UL. He finds that 12% of athletes have played in a fixed match. And this is about match fixing in all sports, actually. So I mentioned Michael Conlan and Stephen Donnelly, who ended up getting reprimanded for betting on Olympic boxing, even though obviously they weren't betting on their own fights. But that temptation is there to just get involved in betting when you know a sport. Like, you feel like you're an expert, you feel like the odds are a bit ridiculous, you go. And that's a difficult enough path for people to get off.
Yeah, I've, you know, so like you said, when you know, you can see, you know, when you have an inside knowledge of sport, and I suppose, sure, it is tempting, you know, but I'm surprised with that 12% of
people have played in matches that they thought were fixed.
How did he quantify that, or how did it?
How do you know a match is fixed? Yeah. We'll do a bit of reading about it actually, and get some more detail on that for a little bit later on in the show. But it was a survey of people who, I don't know, if maybe afterwards somebody blabs and they tell you. It's like,
very strange to me. Yeah, strange statistic.
Any of the professional fights that you would have been on cards in the past, and you're like, well, that didn't look right.
Personally, I know boxing has a terrible, reputation, or, you hear all these rumors, but I've never been involved or seen a fight where I thought a fighter threw the fight. Now, I've seen fights where fighters didn't try, but they'd usually be journeyman and opponents, hit to lose,
Yeah. The tomato cans.
But I've never seen anybody I thought throw a fight or a fight be fixed. Now, I know there was one suspicious fight a few years ago in the stadium involving Michael Gomez. I can't remember who he's fighting, but I believe he's...
He turned his back, that one?
Yeah, and his purse was withheld after the fight, and there was an investigation, but apparently there'd been a lot of money put on this certain round that he lost.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've never seen it personally,
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We've got the Irish Independent next, and of course, there it is. That's where I get used to this. Mourinho plots Pogba solution. Talisman's ban for Derby gives Man United boss major headache. So this is obviously the fact that Manchester United have decided not to appeal the red card that Paul Pogba got for what was a blatant red card offence at the weekend. And then Conor Murray pleads with the IRFU to prevent O'Mahony departure. This is Conor Murray saying that obviously with Zebo already gone, and if they were to lose Peter O'Mahony as well, that would be a hammer blow to Munster rugby culture. Next to the Times Ireland, so we can take a look at that now. Again, obviously, a lot of focus on Peter O'Mahony. Murray thinks O'Mahony will opt to stay put. Hazard stalls on 300 grand offer. This is Eden Hazard, who hasn't quite decided if he's going to take up the 300 grand a week that Chelsea are offering. I mean, why would you sign? I would wait until the last minute and become a free agent.
Yeah, just hard to say no to 300 grand though, isn't it?
Well, you might get 500 if you wait until your contract runs out and then there's no transfer fee, and it's like... Football's weird, right? The amount of money is actually... It's getting to the point where it's weird.
They live a different life, isn't it? It's a different existence.
Yeah, even though they're still just lads who play football.
Yeah, like when you're watching a football game, you have to realise this is 11 millionaires playing against 11... Like, let's go down to the park and watch 11 millionaires play a game of soccer against 11 millionaires.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah, and it loses a bit of its appeal when you start to think of it like that. In no particular order for the tabloids today, it is Lat's not crocked, he needs more time. That's
great puns.
Yeah. Needs. It's like, geez, they're working hard today. Jose defends dropping star. This is Zlatan Ibrahimovic being rested for the game tonight because he reckons that he's going to need him. They also have a story about the under-21 hurling team, which you can check out The Sun for your own information and titillation if you want. He's golden brown. Scott Brown will tonight beat Kenny Dalglish's European Cup appearance record. That's for Celtic, obviously. It's Pog of War. This is... obviously the fact that Pogba's going to play tonight but not at the weekend because he's suspended. A good story about Kula winning the Leinster hurling title at the weekend, but they were given the wrong cup for celebration. Apparently the right cup, which they had returned to the Leinster Council as the defending Leinster champions, had been damaged, and so they just gave him another cup. It was like, we don't have the right cup here, take this one, don't look at it too much. And they were like looking at the bottom, it was like, there's lots of county team names in this instead of clubs, so apparently they're going to get the right one soon. Doesn't really matter, does it? You get the cup eventually.
Symbolic, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Raheem's real deal, because Real Madrid are interested in him, and he's decided not to sign a new deal at City until after the World Cup, because he's obviously also in the form of his life. You're banging in the goals, you're like, I'm going to wait and see how much more I can get. Tempting offer from somebody else.
It's all brinkmanship, isn't it? Like with Hazard and even with Peter O'Mahony, I guess they're just trying to play the clubs off each other in order to get the best deal for themselves, but you can't blame them,
Not at all, no. And especially in a sport like rugby where like 2 concussions in the space of 3 or 4 months and your career's over, and it's like, thanks very much for that, off you go.
I remember speaking to Paul Conlan before he was intending going to France during the summer, before he was supposed to go over, and like he was saying it's a second chance for me, in terms of, it wasn't about money for him. He was saying, like, I've never lived outside of Limerick. I'm in the house next door to my parents, just down the street, and we've only ever lived in one place. I've been based here all my life, and the kids have never seen, so it was more about experience. And then, lo and behold, he gets injured and he never leaves, and So that's how fragile it is, and like rugby is probably the most dangerous sport in terms of injuries and that. So
yeah, totally. I mean, I would kind of advise everybody who's in that situation to get away for a couple of years in the middle of your career while you're still really good, so you can come back and finish on a high. Yeah. As opposed to just go. I don't know. Maybe you should go when you're older.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame anyone for getting as much money as they can while they can.
Absolutely. Jose's one eye on City. This is obviously the fact that Pogba's not going to play in the Champions League. Klopp cannot fluff his lines. John Aldridge. With his column in the Herald today, and Rogers win it for our fans. So that's the crack with the newspapers today. Leonard on Periscope says, in Vienna listening. Good to see Andy on the show. How you doing, Leonard? We do have watchers all around the world, it turns out. Get in touch with us wherever you are. There you go. Mervyn Ford says, watching from Sydney with the Ashes on in the background. Love the show. Haven't seen any of the Ashes today. Just know that England crapped out yesterday, and then the Aussies weren't great yesterday as well. So maybe Mervyn, you could give us a wicket by wicket report for the rest of the show, and you can do a bit of work for us. We can sweat the assets. Right, let's talk a bit about boxing. Obviously, we had Eric Donovan on the show last week in advance of his fight at before we get to the boxing, I've got some Mark Clattenburg for you from the show last night. Obviously, he's done an interview with Sky, and he's revealed that he goes into the big matches kind of already intending on what's happening being somewhat in his head. He has a game plan.
In a way, you scripted it. I helped the game. I certainly benefited the game by my style of refereeing. Some referees would have played by the book, and Tottenham would have been down to 7 or 8 players and probably lost. And Tottenham would have been looking for an excuse. But I didn't give them an excuse, because my game plan was let them lose the title.
Oh.
What?
Oh.
What?
It's a great piece, isn't it? Oh.
Is this for real?
Oh, honestly.
I strongly recommend, if you get a chance, to listen to a bit more of it as well.
You can't have a game plan.
Yeah.
You can't set out not to send someone off.
Mark does.
He also referred to himself in the third person before that answer and said that he was the best referee in the world. He knew he was the best ref in the world, and he was able to make decisions before players knew what the right decisions were.
The level of ego is out of control. But that he would go into a game and say, I'm not going to send someone off even if they deserve to get sent off because of what the papers will say the next day.
I'm going to allow them to lose the league themselves rather than look at me.
Rather than referee the game. What if someone gets a broken leg because he wasn't putting a stamp on things?
I think that's maybe a little bit thought out. That I think a referee would have to be in the moment every time. He's got to be. He can't necessarily. He can't.
He had his game plan and he stuck to it.
Well,
what would you have had to do to get sent off then, to force Mark Clattenburg to move away from his game plan?
GBH.
Yeah, chin Clattenburg.
That's unbelievable stuff.
Chin and the referee, yeah, that would get you sent off, all right. Yeah. What do you make of this? Because, like, Mark Clattenburg obviously rightly gets a lot of crap for, being the most stylish, egotistical referee in the history of football. Self-styled, stylish man. And yet, I kind of see the point that he's making here. It's like... No,
I can't. I'm a Slavic, like Kevin there, and in the clip all he could do was like, if he has a pre-plan, I think he's rehearsed those quotes. I think that's a bit of performance.
I think so too.
I think he's being sensational.
I think it's more retrospective than at the time.
Yeah, I think he's probably like trying to, I don't know, cause controversy maybe, or just be sensational or whatever. I don't know.
It's a bit of attention seeking, all right.
Yeah. Is he the one who tattooed the World Cup or Champions League?
Yeah. That's him. Yeah, that's the guy. With the slicked hair. I do think though that like. The point the lads are making about him, I'm the best referee in the world. If a footballer was to say I'm the best referee or the best footballer in the world, we would all go, oh, that's good that you have that ambition. Maybe referees should have the ambition to be the best in the world. Maybe just don't tell us all about it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't make it all about yourself.
Yeah.
Huge ego, and seems like a guy probably couldn't make it as a footballer, so found a way to get on the pitch.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of boxing referees that we don't really ever hear about or see that much about. Some we do, right?
Some you do. Some have profile, some for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And some just because they're good. You're probably more familiar with the Vegas referees because the bigger fights would be there, and there's a small group of them, and they usually use us, circulate the same amount of referees. But some of the ones you wouldn't be like the one, I can't remember his name now, Foster Jr., who stopped George Groves in the first French fight. He kind of got a lot of attention for the wrong reasons, and it's usually the judges who were getting the wrong, like in recent days, judges who were getting the...
Do the referees matter? Like, do they help with the style of a fight?
They definitely do, yeah. They can allow a fight to flow, they can disrupt the fighter. There was a lot of, when Hatton fought Mayweather, Joe Cortez, he would have been very prominent in Vegas, and he was the one who actually McGregor brought into camp. Him to instruct him in boxing, but he totally disrupted Hatton in that fight. He broke, as soon as Hatton got in close, he broke the fighters apart, and every time they would separate them, he'd push Hatton right back. If you watch the fight again, to me, he was so favoured Mayweather in the fight. Because
obviously Hatton's style, around that, Hatton had already fought Costa at that point, had he?
Hatton had beaten Costa, he was champion.
And his whole style against Costa was just put his head down and sit underneath his chin. And
that was Hatton's style. Yeah. And it was his only hope against Mayweather was to try and push him back. And he was losing the fight, but he wasn't helped by the fact that any time he did get in close, Cortez would push him back and push him right back, and then he would have to start again, trying to build that momentum of coming forward and getting in close again.
Meanwhile, Floyd's picking him off, picking
the points and hurting him.
Yeah. So that's okay. I didn't realise that the referees were.
But they kind of like huge calls, of course. Like when I fought Peter Quillen in New York, the second knockdown, he stood on my foot, and the referee called the knockdown. Because I was south, but my right foot is forward, and he's orthodox, his left foot was so it's always a tendency for feet. But he stood on my toe, punched me, and I went down. And the referee said, knockdown 1. And as I was getting up, I said, I stood on my toe. He said, yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
What?
It was only too late. It was too late. But I appreciated that, He admitted he made a mistake, and I could see how it could happen, He did,
but suddenly your righteous anger is gone. It's, no way. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. But funnily enough, one of the judges didn't score as a knockdown. One of the judges.
So he spotted it too?
Yeah, when I fought in March in New York, I got into the elevator in the hotel, and we're going up the elevator, and he said, hey, do you know who I am? He said, no, I'm the referee who didn't give that point to Quillen.
Hey.
And it got me a draw in the fight.
Okay, right. So actually, that would have had an impact.
Yeah, it would have been like not a 10-7 round.
And the other two judges must have scored a 10-7, did they?
Yeah, well, I think there was a split. 1 gave it to him and 2 gave it to me.
Okay.
So, yeah. But I had won the round, you see. So it only made it 10-8, and in his card it was a 10-9.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it is unbelievably important.
Yeah.
And when he makes a mistake like that, does he not just kind of shake his hands?
No, I think it was too late.
All right.
Well, he probably was.
Sorry about that, and then you walk over and apologise.
But he did come out and he apologised profusely at the end of the fight.
Right, yeah.
And it was a mistake. I accepted it, I didn't hold it against him.
But imagine if Quillen had made the weight.
Well, imagine had I lost the fight, then I probably wouldn't have been as understanding.
That's the bit where suddenly decking the referee becomes an option.
Yeah, I'd be taking the Kevin Kilban road.
All right. If you want to get in touch with us, you can get us here on Twitter, twitter.com/offtheball, or you can always get us at facebook.com/offtheball as well. Right, I think we can talk to Andy West. We want to talk about some Spanish football. Obviously, Atletico in action tonight against Chelsea, and it's not really as important a game as we'd hoped it would be. Barring some kind of miracle in the Roma Carabao game. Andy, why are Atletico not at the level that they should be for a team who has been at the forefront of European football over the last half decade or so?
It's been goal scoring. That's been their problem this season. Earlier this season in particular, they were struggling for goals. Antoine Griezmann, obviously, as everyone knows, is their star player, their best striker. He wasn't scoring. He went a couple of months without goals. And no one else was really picking it up. In the past, they've had people chipping in, but that wasn't happening. So they had this succession of 0-0, 1-1 draws. Obviously, had a couple of draws against Karabakh, and that's probably what's going to cost them a place in the Champions League in the end.
When it's just a goal-scoring issue and they have Diego Costa chomping at the bit, ready to get involved, but not allowed to get involved for another 3 or 4 weeks, does that automatically mean the problem is solved come January?
And Vitolo, another player they've got coming in January. They signed him for 40 million from Sevilla. He's a Spain international. He's a very important player for Atletico as well, because he's creative. He will give that bit of unpredictability that they don't have at the moment. So yeah, him and Diego Costa, obviously the two of them coming in is going to really strengthen that attack. But if they're out of the Champions League already, that's obviously a huge part of their season gone. And, you know, we all thought, OK, they'll come into the Champions League, get through the group, and then head into the group phases, strengthened with Costa and Vitolo. But it looks like it's not going to happen. So that's going to be hugely frustrating for Atletico.
Is Vitolo a potential long-term replacement for Griezmann?
No, he's more a winger. He's not the goal scorer. He's more potentially a replacement for Carrasco, who's another player who's been underperforming this season. Very talented, but a bit unpredictable, and he's been linked to a lot of English clubs as well. So maybe if Carrasco goes, Vitolo will take his place. But ideally, the two of them could play together, and we could see a bit more of an attack-minded Atletico than we have in the past.
Given that they have had this transfer embargo over the last while, have they actually managed the situation relatively well, considering the difficulties of managing a team through a transitional period like this?
I guess so, yeah. I think they did well to get those two important players lined up, to get two players like that, established, experienced internationals, to agree to forfeit half a season was a big thing, although Vitolo's actually been on loan at Las Palmas, so he has been playing. So yeah, they did in that respect, but it's just so annoying for them that they had this tough Champions League group. You know, there's not many, I don't think there's any group as tough as Roma and Chelsea. But then they really threw it away by failing to beat Qarabag twice. They couldn't punch their way out of a Qarabag on two occasions, and that's going to be so frustrating for them. If they'd won one of those games, they'd be in a strong position now. You know, they're still hoping, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they win at Chelsea tonight, because they've actually started to come into form in the last couple of weeks. But then they need Qarabag to get a point at Roma, so it's looking tough for them. I
did want to ask you about that form of the last couple of weeks, because maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, it seemed like the entire Simeone era was coming to an end. For whatever reason, he felt the need to come out and specifically mention Everton by name, as if he, you know, I don't think that Everton...
He was never going to go to Everton.
Exactly.
No,
it was a weird...
You're right.
It was weird. Yeah. So something's going on in the back of his mind about, like, I'm laying down a marker here. I'm obviously at a much higher level than this, but maybe it's I am ready to talk to people at, like, say, that top tier of English football, that top tier of Italian football. Italian
football, I think, is a bit more likely, and Inter Milan is the club he's always been linked with. You know, he used to play for them as well as he did for Atletico, and that's the club I think is in his heart, and obviously a bit of a sleeping giant, Inter Milan, and he would love to go there and replicate what he's done with Atletico, bringing another a big team who had been underachieving, bring them up again, and the Argentina national job as well. How much would he love to work with Lionel Messi? He never misses an opportunity to praise Messi. So if he can take that national job, if it becomes available after the World Cup, I think that's something he'd love to do as well. But I don't think we can necessarily assume he's going to leave Atletico just yet. He's 2 or 3 times in the past talked about maybe leaving, but he stayed. And maybe, you know, there's a long way to go in this season. And I know we're going to talk about the Liga as well. And they're in with a shout, very much in with a shout, especially if they get knocked out of the Champions League, because they'll be able to focus everything on La Liga. So there's a long way to go in this season, and you know, barring a miracle in the Champions League, they're out of that, but they could still rescue a good season.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, and maybe even earlier in the season when Griezmann wasn't scoring, it didn't really look like they were going to be in with a shout of contending at the top of La Liga, but all of a sudden, a few drop points from everybody around them, and suddenly they're just 6 points back from Barcelona.
Yeah, and they've really turned it around. I mean, the turning point was the last Champions League round, where you might remember Griezmann scored that spectacular overhead goal against Roma. It was 0-0 midway through the second half. They had to win to have any chance. They were really struggling, and then he scored that goal, and that was like the light switched on, and they've turned it around. They then won 5-0 at Levante in the league, and they came through a test at the weekend. Griezmann scored again, a late winner against Real Sociedad. So that they've got 3 wins in a row now. The defence is as good as always. They're unbeaten in La Liga. So, you know, it's very quickly how the picture can change. A couple of weeks ago, it was doom and gloom, and they've had a terrible season, and Simeone's lost it, and he's going to have to leave, and now they're the form team.
Yeah, they are the form team because everybody else around them, as I mentioned, dropped points at the weekend. Particularly wanted to talk to you and get what you made of the Real Madrid situation. Again, weirdly, not that weird given their history, rumours around Zidane being on something of a hot seat, which is absolutely crazy considering the achievements of the Champions League successes that he's had in such a short period of time. But that's the job at Real Madrid. You just have to win all the time.
Yeah, and to be fair, any other Real Madrid manager probably would have been fired by now. You know, to be fourth in La Liga with all these drop points, that humiliating defeat at Tottenham as well, where they were lucky to get a 3-1 really. So yeah, Zidane is under a bit of pressure now, and the worrying thing in the game at Bilbao at the weekend where they drew 0-0 was that they had so much possession, but they didn't really create that many chances. The best chances in the game actually were Bilbao's, and Keylor Navas, the Madrid keeper, had to have a good game to get them a point from that one. So that's what they're struggling for, is creating chances. Ronaldo, to be honest, is the only one who looks like scoring. You know, he had a 3 or 4 chances that came close. Benzema actually did hit the post, to be fair, but he's generally struggled this season. And you know, I've mentioned this with you guys before. It's selling Morata in the summer was such a big setback for them when they didn't then replace him. When they sold him to Chelsea, they assumed they were going to get Mbappe, who ended up going to PSG. Obviously, didn't get anyone else, and now Zidane just doesn't trust his options from the bench. So when Benzema's struggling and they need to change something in the game, they can't.
Yeah, okay.
And there's some reports here from in the papers linking Raheem Sterling to Madrid. Do you put any stock in that?
Well, maybe. You know, I think it's inevitable given how well he's doing at the moment. You know, all these goals, late winners he's scoring. I think any striker or attacking player who's doing well at the moment is going to be linked with Real Madrid, and they probably will make a move in the January market, which is unusual. As you know, at this time of year, it's very rare for big deals to happen. But Real Madrid are so desperate for options up front. You know, they've got Benzema, they've got Ronaldo, fine. But Bale's always injured. You know, he came back last week, got injured again. Borja Mayoral's their other backup striker, who's a really inexperienced youngster. And they don't really have any other goal scorers. They've got, you know, attacking midfielders, but they need goal scorers. So anyone like Sterling, who's putting a few in, Icardi's getting linked a lot. Lewandowski will be rumours about him as well. Aubameyang again probably, and they probably will sign someone in January.
Do we know how much money they're going to spend in January? Is there are they happy to spend 120 million or whatever it'll take to get Aubameyang or somebody like that?
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would go big because they recognise that their season is really in danger. It's not just a case that, you know, at the moment they're struggling for goals or they've got to cover for a short-term injury or something like that. This is a long-term problem that needs fixing. You know, even if Benzema comes back to form, he's never been the consistent score every week kind of player. And losing Morata without replacing him has left such a big hole in the squad that they do need for the long term, especially with Benzema and Ronaldo past 30 as well. They need a long-term goal scorer. So I think rather than wait till the summer, if they get the chance, even if they have to spend big now, they will. Yeah.
So how safe is Zidane at this point? What's your general sense of that?
I think he's safe until the Clásico, which is coming up in 2.5 weeks, just before Christmas. It's the final game before the winter break. If Barcelona win that convincingly, Zidane will be in trouble. He may not even last until the new year. It was that time of year that Benitez was fired to give Zidane the job, early January. And I think if they continue as they have been, continue to struggle, and they lose El Clásico at the Bernabeu against Barca, then he could go.
Are there obvious replacements? Is there somebody waiting in the wings that they know, okay, we can just go ahead, get this guy and everything's going to be grand?
Well, Pochettino's the one he wants. Whether he's going to be that easy to just go and get him is a different matter, but that's the one that Florentino Perez wants. He's admired him for a long time, back from when he worked in Spain with Espanyol, and obviously the work he's done with Tottenham as well. He'd be the top of the list. And, you know, then it comes down to how hard Tottenham play it and how much Pochettino wants to come, if he's willing to, you know, really make it impossible for Tottenham to keep him.
Has Pochettino made enough of the come hither eyes to Real Madrid to give them sense that, yeah, actually they can have him? Or is this the type of thing that happens at the end of the season where they let Zidane play out the string, see what happens, and then go, okay, make their move in the summer?
I think he's encouraged them enough. They've played each other in the Champions League a couple of times this season, and he's been always very gushing about Real Madrid, and he's been non-committal about the rumours, so he's let those rumours carry on. It would be a big thing for him, obviously, to leave Tottenham mid-season, but it's happened before many times, so certainly wouldn't rule it out. One
last question about Valencia, obviously going really well. There was this sense building from a couple of weeks back that they'd started the season brilliantly and that they'd invested in getting off to a good start, that they'd had this conditioning program which was designed to make them fitter than everybody else early on in the season. Is there any sense that maybe that's just how a team gets built, and so we shouldn't have the expectation that they will be able to sustain a title challenge all the way into March, April?
Yeah, I think they're well short of a title challenge. They're very much better than they were. And Marcelino, the manager, you mentioned the conditioning program he brought in. He's done a great job and he's got them going in the right direction. But the squad is lacking. They don't have the ability to grind out the results. They lost 1-0 at Getafe this weekend. You're not going to win the league with results like that. So top four is the best they can do. And that would be great from where they've been for the last few years. But I don't think we can regard them as title contenders at all.
And what's the truth about Barcelona? Despite the fact that they have a massive lead at the top of La Liga at the moment, they don't seem to be as dominant a team as they have been at any point really over the last decades.
No, you're right, and they were getting results early this season, but really getting away with results that often they didn't deserve, and often it was a combination of Messi, who obviously is always going to be Messi and win games by himself, and at the other end, Ter Stegen and Umtiti in defence. When two of your best three players in the season are defenders, that shows what kind of form you're producing, and they don't look a convincing team. They've got problems in squad depth because Iniesta can't play too much. He's now 34. Dembele, they spent 150 million on, and he's been injured, not back yet. Not really convinced in the short time he did have before he was injured. Luis Suarez has had a terrible season so far. Umtiti's injured now as well. So yeah, they're in a flattering position, and I think that 6-point lead will be cut down.
Andy, good stuff. Enjoy the games tonight. Thanks a million, man.
All right, thank you. Cheers, guys.
We can have a look at the fixtures tonight now. It's not the best week of Champions League fixtures. So this is matchday 6. Chelsea and Atletico, Celtic and Anderlecht. Obviously something is riding on that Celtic Anderlecht game. Celtic want to qualify for the Europa League. If Bayern beat Paris Saint-Germain by 4 clear goals, they'll top the group. Unlikely to happen. Olympiacos, Juventus, Barcelona, Sporting, Benfica, Basel and Roma Karabag. You would expect Roma to win that, which means that Chelsea Atletico game is effectively meaningless as well. Let's talk now about boxing. So Andy was in the corner for Eric Donovan at the weekend. Obviously they were training last week. We had Eric in. Here's some nice things that Eric had to say about Andy.
It's been brilliant. It's been so educating.
Getting a fresh perspective, or
just the knowledge Andy has of the game, he's worked with the best. Manuel Stewart. Is that all right? Manuel Stewart is the equivalent of Sir Alex Ferguson, you know what I mean? But in football terms, but sometimes when you work with good coaches as well, it doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to be a good coach. But Andy's a observant guy and takes in a lot. And he's a very good way of relating that back out to people, so that helps me. So every day working with Andy is a school day, and I'm in school today.
And has he been working you hard, or is it kind of bit by bit and just building up kind of knowledge?
He's working me hard, yeah. There's no there's no let up. Whatever he tells me to do anyway, I'm like, I'll do it, because I know that's what you need to do. I don't we discuss things, but I don't complain. I don't have any don't reject anything that he says or whatever. It makes sense. Everything makes sense. He's a southpaw, I'm a southpaw, and what he's taught me already I can already see how effective it is. And it's turning out to be.
You want to step back, small step back. Yes. Yeah. Jab up. Jab down. Fight and go. Yes. Jab, hook, left hand. Yes. Now jab down. On your left. 1, 2, go left, go. Hook. Sorry. Not big time.
Do you like working the pads?
Yeah, I do. I'm still learning how to do them to the level, not at the level I'd like to be yet.
Yeah.
You know.
So what do you need to do to get better at that? Doing
coordination and, I don't know, just being more imaginative, I think. But
so were you watching
the basics down?
Were you watching that critiquing your
That
own?
wasn't too bad, actually.
Yeah, that looked pretty good.
Sorry, but compared to Adam Booth, I was actually watching some of his clips yesterday.
Right.
I was definitely a novice.
So how did he, because he's obviously a fighter turned trainer. Is it just hours and hours of practice of that too?
He started years ago, and David Hay was an amateur, and he used to learn pads with him, working with him.
Right.
He's developed it over the years.
And so when you're swiping that right hand, are you trying to? You're obviously not trying to hit out because you could, but what's the?
It's
the shape.
So he gets into the habit of, after he's thrown his left hand, he rolls underneath.
Yeah.
Instead of pulling back with his chin up,
Which is what the amateurs do.
Yeah, and it's an easy way to. It's more of an effective way to elude a punch, and there's also, when you're down there, there's also an opportunity to land more if it's there.
Yeah. Because if you put your head up, then you're going to get pinged.
Yeah, especially when you throw your backhand, if you're for a southpaw left hand.
Yeah.
At that point you're exposed. When it's there, you've committed everything, and your natural reaction is to pull back.
Yeah. But actually, if you bend down,
you have to just go down.
Yeah, I mean, if you're bending down into a punch that's coming in your face, you're in trouble.
There's always
that's the risk.
Risk and reward.
Yeah. Well, it does look like it's a different skill from.
It is,
from boxing, doing the pads.
Yeah, it is.
It's not the same.
Definitely. Like, everyone has their own style of doing it, and I picked up from different things from Emmanuel and different things from Zora and Thierry even, and Adam, obviously.
And what would the differences between, Zora's obviously a little guy compared to, in my head, Manny's a tall guy, is he?
No, Manuel, they're all about the same height.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you have to be 5'11" to be a good coach. But no, Zora would be very much on your toes and very explosive, but with a lot of feints. Emmanuel would be on your toes well, a lot of balance and rhythm and high volume of punches, but also locking your punches out at the end so that you drill through.
Yeah.
Adam would be more in sitting into your hips, sitting low, and turning your hips with your punches.
Right.
For more power.
They're not actually, well, maybe with the exception of the feint, the feint and the high velocity, high number of punches, they kind of are exclusive. Like, you can't be feinting all the time and punching all the time.
Yeah.
So when
pick your moments.
Yeah, when you come to Manny, is he like, what's with all these feints, Andy?
No. Manuel was high volume on the pads too, and the most rounds I ever did with Emmanuel on the pads was 4.
Right.
It was because it was the maximum I could do, because by the end of it you were totally gassed.
Because all you're doing is punching.
You're punching, but you're also thinking.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just punch. Like, you could punch all day on the bag if you just want to punch.
Yeah.
But you're actually balancing, moving, thinking, and you're mentally working yourself out as well as physically. You
must feel great after that, do you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It's like you're at every day's a school day, but you're actually at school.
Yeah.
Coming out of that going, I can take anybody.
Well, it was always a thrill for me to know that I was doing pads with Emmanuel Stewart, and that, like, great fighters have done. I'd be doing the exact same things that great fighters have done.
Yeah. I can see as well why Eric benefits from that as well. How did the fight go? What was that experience like?
He boxed very well. He won every single round. Tried really hard to stop his opponent. I know he wanted to make an impression and try to get the guy out of there. The guy usually doesn't get stopped. He's only been stopped once.
Yeah.
So he
and he didn't make the weight either.
No, he came in heavy. There was a few things that went against Eric. The guy came in heavy, and it was either call the fight off or just go ahead with it.
Yeah.
And he had to go ahead with it because there was too much riding on it for him. And Also, he hurt his hands after the first round.
Right.
Which is always like could happen, you know, which wasn't ideal. So his hand's quite bruised and swollen now. So other than that, I thought he boxed well at times, and he definitely did some of the things that we worked on in terms of getting low and rolling and exiting low, which was encouraging and it was invaluable because the guy was Gonzalez was awkward punter. He was basically tucked up for most of the fight, but would unleash one punch when you didn't expect it. In terms of he was letting Eric do all the work, punch, and then he was just sitting there just trying to land one over the top. And for Eric, that's quite dangerous because Eric is a tall boxer. You know, he's not a crouch boxer. So when he was punching, he was seeing the shots and he was getting low, which was encouraging. He still needs to work. To give him a critique, he still needs to work on plotting the fight out, being more strategic, being more methodical, and having more kind of thought behind his work. But that will come with time, yeah. Yeah,
when did you get good at being methodical and...?
It takes time, you know, and even now it might not be, like, when you're under pressure and you're under stress, you will always revert back to what you know and what you've always done. And I'm probably the same when I'm under stress and pressure in the ring. And
it's just that your basics have been instilled by Manny Stewart, right?
Yeah, and I've had 39 fights now, so I've got, you know, I've had the luxury of experience and being young enough to learn my trade. The unfortunate thing for Eric is being over 30 years old. He has to kind of learn as he goes and hasn't got the luxury of taking 14, 15 fights to learn his trade. He has to kind of learn in the camps and learn in the ring.
Yeah, okay. So Eric will be out hopefully again early in the new year. We should talk about some of the other stuff that's going on. The Rigondeaux-Lomachenko fight this weekend is the perfect end, I think, to the year in boxing, because here's like Rigondeaux, who we thought would never get in against a good fighter because no one would ever want to fight him because he's just so skillful, and Lomachenko, who is clearly a superstar. And I think Bob Arum says it's the first time in history that two double gold medalists at the Olympics have fought each other in a title fight, which in and of itself is remarkable.
It is, yeah.
And so we should be looking ahead forward to this.
Yeah, it should be the biggest fight of the year. Well, it's been a stellar year for us. It's probably been one of the best years of boxing I can remember. You know, from the start we had James DeGale versus Badu Jack, we had Frampton Santa Cruz, and it just continued on. You know, like there's been other fights, I'm probably forgetting a lot.
Klitschko,
Joshua. Yeah, Golovkin, Canelo, and so on and so forth. You know, there's been a lot of fights, and this is up there with any of them. I'm not sure if it will live up to the action in the ring because two highly skilled guys.
Yeah.
They might cancel each other out a little bit, and they're still very much. I don't know about these two guys. They can fight in any style they want. They can be aggressive or they can be boxers, but I think it will be a highly skilled fight, and I think this is a fight for the pure boxing fans, you know, like the real fight fans.
People in Ireland will be familiar with Rigondeaux because obviously he fought in Dublin in City West when he fought Willie Big Bang Casey, and I just remember that night, like, we did live commentary of it, and it was clear pretty early on that this guy has unbelievable skills.
Yeah, he's probably like, these are the two best amateurs up there, the two best amateurs that ever lived
of all time.
Yeah, I know, and he'd do that to the best fighters. You know, he's done that to the best fighters so far. He fought Nonito Donaire, who was like a 2-weight world champion, and he schooled him. You know, and that's been his problem. He's been too good. You know, and that.
Everybody says it's been boring.
He's in that kind of who needs him club. Not that it's not boring. Like, I don't think he is boring because you look at, like, for me, I just enjoy watching him because it's sensational, the stuff he does. Now, it might be, like, he's not a Golovkin where he's going to be coming in all action. He stands back and he's slick. And
when you're talking about plotting fights, like, he just seems to have, like, five steps ahead of everybody.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, I'm going to have a body punch here, I'm going to wait. And then I have another body punch, and then when your man thinks I'm not going to do it again, it's going to have a third one and fight's over.
Same thing with Lomachenko. You can say the same thing about both of these guys. The biggest difference between them now is the weight. You know, Rigondeaux, to make this fight, he's really been pushing for the big social media campaign.
Yeah. Just explain the weight to us, will you? Because so it's super bantam against Rigondeaux.
He's generally fights at super bantamweight. He's moving up to super feather, which was different. He usually fights at 55 kilos, and now he's moving up to 59 kilos. Now that's 4 kilos doesn't sound a lot, but when you percentage to their body weight, it's a lot for that weight. And the thing is that Lomachenko will probably be coming from about 62 kilos.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more, maybe 64 to come down to that weight, and then by the time he rehydrates, he'll be back up there. So that would be the difference. Because, when they're so evenly matched in terms of skill, but also they're totally different fighters.
Yeah.
Lomachenko can box, is a great boxer, but traditionally likes to fight and be all action and bamboozle his opponents with speed and footwork and accuracy. Where Rigondeaux is an aggressive counterpuncher, but he's more or less a classic boxer where he's slick, he sits back and he's a southpaw, and he uses long range punching. But it's a great fight, and it's been a great year for boxing, and this could be the best fight.
Yeah.
Could be one of the best fights of all time if they go at it.
I think they might though, but like Rigondeaux's at that stage of his career where
there's no love lost between them. They don't like each other, you know. And I think Rigondeaux will be put out by the fact that he's had to concede everything to make the fight.
He also hasn't made anything like the money. If people don't know his story, he had to defect from Cuba, and you were saying there was a speedboat involved. Like it's been a remarkable story. He had to leave his family behind, and then eventually, obviously, the whole Cuban thing unravels, and he's actually now able to, I think, to be reunited. There's certainly an amazing backstory there, and he never got the recognition when he turned pro, because he won the world title after about 5 or 6 fights.
Yeah, it seemed he wasn't with a big promoter. He was working with Top Rank, but he was kind of moving from promoter to promoter, and there wasn't really in contrast to Lomachenko, who comes out of the amateurs, signs directly with Top Rank, and they build him and push him, and it's becoming more and more. And I think more so on the social media side, you know, some of the clips and videos they show release of Lomachenko training, they're sensational. Just little things and exercises and drills he does
to make him.
Yeah, just to give him some exposure and just to show people how talented this guy is. And he was actually video of him the other day. He was playing a game of tennis with himself. I don't know if you saw that. No. He was batting the ball up, sprinting around to the other side of the court, hitting the ball back, sprinting around to the other side, hitting the ball back. Like sensational stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He had a video where he threw a lot of coins up in the air and he caught each one individually before they fell.
Right. Okay.
Like he's just genetically, naturally gifted guy. Both of these are. Yeah. But they also had the schooling as well of years of discipline, and they've come from great amateur backgrounds, great amateur programs.
Yeah.
So all the ingredients could be the best fight of the year.
Make sure you get up and watch this.
Yeah, I definitely want to get up, stay up for.
On the undercard of that, Michael Conlan's fighting again. That's just what Conlan has to do. He has to just keep fighting these fights every 3-4 months and make sure that he's picking stuff up along the way, as opposed to just cruising through them. Yeah, and learning in the gym and from sparring, and they will have to start stepping things up a little bit more for a guy of his skill level and pedigree. I would have liked to seen him move a bit faster, you know, against better opposition. But they're taking their time with him, which you can't argue. You know, Top Rank have the best track record of bringing guys along, and generally they match their guys hard. They want you to prove it to them almost sometimes. So hopefully they don't do calls where they give him easy fights and all of a sudden throw him in the deep end. You know, but on paper this is his best opponent. But when you look at his record with a bit deeper, you can see that anybody he's fought. Molina's fought with a winning record, they've lost. So he's lost 2. So we'll see. Also on the undercard, Shakur Stevenson, the Olympic medalist from the USA, who potentially will fight Conlan in the future. That's the fight they're trying to make happen. And they're both Top Rank though, aren't they?
They're both with Top Rank, which is fine. Yeah. Which will suit them to make the fight, and that will be a huge fight down the line if they both continue on their course. Ideally, one of them would have, or both of them would have titles at that point, and it's some kind of unification. Or a vacant title. Who's going to win the Rigondeaux fight? I go with Lomachenko because the weight and the youth. That's all. But it wouldn't surprise me if Rigondeaux schooled him or knocked him out. I kind of want Rigondeaux to win to just fulfill that destiny. The underdog. Like, you know, because he'll clearly get a rematch and the rematch. If he loses this, not that it's the end for him, but if he loses this, it'll be if Lomachenko loses, it's not the end. He's definitely coming back. He's definitely still a star in boxing. You know, he's young. And if Rigondeaux wins, then the rematch will be sensational. Yeah.
No, I'm just being a bit greedy here. Gavin Casey, how you doing, Gavin? Hope you're well this morning. Wondering, ask Andy, who's your current Irish pound for pound top 3, including yourself?
I saw that flash up on the screen. I'm still juggling it up. Well, Burnett's number 1, unified bantamweight champion of the world. Number 2, I don't know, like Frampton. You have to say Frampton, Carl Frampton, and I'd say Katie Taylor, number 3.
Yeah.
They're all like Katie Taylor's world champion, so she could arguably be number 2.
Yeah, that's not a bad list.
Yeah.
You didn't make your own list?
No. Well, did I? No, I didn't make it into the list. Oh no, I haven't been active since March, so I can hardly put myself in there. And pound for pound, I'm probably about 185 at the moment, so I'm losing, lowering my chances.
All right, let's bring you some Paul Flynn, right? This is actually related to boxing. We're going to speak with Kenneth Egan in just a moment. But Paul Flynn, the Dublin footballer, is on the radio tonight with Joe. He's already been in and done the interviews. So here's a clip where he's talking about his own career change and going back to college a little bit later on in life. Have a look.
Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to get a degree. Okay. And then I was probably still in this kind of zone of I want to be the best footballer I can be, and that's really what I want to do. I wasn't fully thinking about the other side of my life. So I picked a degree that A, I knew I'd enjoy, and B, it would allow me to still be that footballer that I wanted to be, and that was teaching. So the degree was a teaching degree.
Right. So the hours are going to suit you being the best footballer you can be ultimately. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually just a lesson in it, like too, because I went back, and I'm not like boasting here or anything like that, but I went back. The course I went into, like, you know, I got a sports scholarship in DCU, which it gave you a kind of a. You didn't have to have the same points as others did to get into the course. Once you had the minimum requirements for the course, so there was like, you know, you had to have an honours in a science subject paper, and then you had to have a certain level of points. And I had a decent leaving cert. Like, I'm not the best. I probably could have done better, but
everyone's texting in. Everyone's thinking, how many points?
385.
Very solid.
And you know, I'd stand over. I wasn't on 385 in 5th year, and that's for sure. I remember teachers, my principal coming up to me and saying, "How did you pull that one out of the bag?" Because I was probably a bit of a dosser, and all I cared about was sport, like, you know. But at the same time, I finished the course with a first class honours degree. And
did you? Wow.
And
that's serious.
You know, so
just you must have worked.
But I had an attitude going into it that I wanted to do well, and you know, I wanted to. Whereas there was,
because I did a BA as well. Yeah. And my attitude was, and admittedly I would have been 18 going in. Yeah, my attitude, I was doing English and history. My attitude was, so I'm going to drink a bit and chase girls and maybe go to some lectures, and you know, and I come out with a 2-1.
Yeah.
You know, but I think if I went in a few years later, I might have said to myself, God, it'd be good to get a first here, considering I'm going to give this years of my life.
Yeah.
You obviously had that.
Yeah, and that's the thing you just get with age. Probably, you know, I was a bit more mature going in. I was very focused on my sport still, but that lended itself well to kind of doing well in your assignments, because you weren't out on the beer all the time.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we had good fun and we did pick our battles after Sickerson games and the likes, but you know, you were kind of, you know, minding yourself, and so there's something in that, because I'm talking now to my nephews and the likes, and I'm saying to them, you know, just get into something general, you know, in business or whatever, and then, like, you know, you can go back and do something a little bit older,
more specific,
when it's more specific, and you kind of really know what you want to do, you know.
Yeah, interesting. In the middle of his time in DCU studying to be a teacher, our producer Tommy Rooney was a kid living in the football house, and tells a story about one day they kicked the ball up at the window and they got this stern looking down face who was a bit older than them going, and it was Paul Flynn, who obviously was in studying while the lads were out kicking balls up against the window, messing. Tommy, did you get a first class honours degree from... Yeah, he got a 2-1 and he did a jambalaya, and he's saying, so fair play, Tommy, well done.
Yeah. Impressive guy.
He is really impressive. Yeah, he makes the point as well in another clip that actually, as a kid coming into the Dublin setup or the inter-county setup, he says that you're in a group of people who are high achievers. They want to achieve in football, but they also want to achieve in life. And he came in as an apprentice plumber, did the plumbing thing, and then Pat Gilroy brought in a career guidance person who said was there available to anybody to help them to kind of see what they wanted to do in life. So they were clearly interested in evolving the person as much as the footballer, thinking, I guess, that you know, better All Blacks make better players. Better people make better All Blacks is the philosophy behind that. So
it's interesting. I've often thought about it. You know, I know there's been some pieces on Kenny Egan who has spoke about it and wrote about it. But I always wonder, is that the responsibility of the sport of you know, to, I suppose they have to take some of, like, that sounds like a good system where they have a career guidance and counsellor, and he's there if you want him, you know, and at least give a little push towards education and after career, life after a career. But ultimately, I don't know if it's the responsibility of, just say, the boxing IAB or High Performance to do that. You know, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, you can't really babysit these guys. I know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. Well, let's see to that, because Kenneth Egan is on the line. Good morning to you, Kenneth. How you doing?
Lads, how are you keeping? How are you, Andy?
How are you, Kenny?
All right, yeah.
Yeah, good. How are you?
Playing up blind there.
Well, I was up early, didn't get you in anyway. You made the smart call, getting on Skype.
The reason that we wanted to talk to you was specifically about this issue. You've said it before, but you were quoted again recently as saying, you know, you can't get a mortgage with a silver medal. And it's that whole point about career development for athletes, that you don't just become pigeonholed or identified as exclusively as an athlete, so that when that part of your identity is taken away, you're like, what am I now?
Yeah, definitely. You know, like as Andy mentioned, who's the onus on to encourage athletes to get an education and to pursue a life in after sport? It's ultimately, it comes down to the athlete. You know, you can bring a horse to water and all that, but I think the association, the IABA, needs to engage in working with athletes to try and put the carrot out there and say, look, boxing's not going to last forever. The sport won't last forever. You're not going to be in the ring forever. So let's think about life after sport. And Paul Flynn spoke about it there, you know, having to get everything out of a system at a young age and then go back to school as a mature student. I don't think that we need to do that in the boxing circles. We have young lads coming in there, 17, 18, 19, into the high performance team, and they're getting younger now that are going out and winning medals, that we should be marrying the two together, having the sport and the education system in place. We have Griffith College right beside the National Stadium there. It's been there a long, long time, and we never used it once in relation to study or to you know, like a college purpose, which I think was an awful waste. But now the team is based out in Abbottstown, I still think they should bring in some kind of course or courses for the lads to indulge in. Yeah.
Part of me thinks that you could just use it as like a thing to entice people to stay with the high performance, because it was noticeable that the Olympic Council of Ireland gave out their bursaries for the Tokyo Olympic Games. There was no boxers. There was 10 athletes were given scholarships. I don't know how much it was, but it was something. It would have been something. And there were no boxers because you know, maybe there's just no boxers ready at the moment who they think are going the right way. And like, a lot of boxers are going to get sucked into the professional ranks, and well, if you don't make it,
yeah. Well, like you said, if you don't make it, for people like myself and Canadian, we have a profile of some sort. You know, it's easier for us to do something outside of boxing or after boxing, but we're maybe in the 1% or 2% of boxers who want to succeed, and there are so many who fall by the wayside. And boxing generally, boxers, they come from rough backgrounds, or you know, places where the socio-economic is not the best. You know, that's where boxing thrives, in rough, tough areas.
Yeah.
And usually it's to the detriment of school that you sacrifice boxing to go into boxing. So I think it would be like probably in our day we probably wouldn't have. I don't know, Kenneth, you can say for yourself, but I think there would be a lot more. Boxers would be a lot more receptive to it now in this day and age, because they can see that they need to do something after it, you know. And
yeah,
it's not like boxing's not always going to be for everybody in terms of professional or making it to the Olympics, but to walk away with a degree after it would be something for your time and time served. Like, there are so many boxers now who just come to the end of their, like after an Olympics, or come to the end of their careers, and they don't, like, where do they go? What do they do? You know,
and who are they? Like, they're boxers.
Exactly, yeah.
But then they're former
boxers. That's who they identify as, and I know a lot of them find it hard. They get used to the attention, they get used to the routine, and having a grant or being funded and not paying tax. Then you come out, all of a sudden you got to get a job, you got to pay tax. It's a minefield, and I think some some preparation would be ideal, but like kind of said, it has to come from the boxers. The onus is on them.
Yeah, part of me feels like, actually, you know what, if we're giving state funding to people and we're putting them on that kind of level of support, then actually the state does have a duty of care to what happens afterwards. We can't just turn the money off and go, right, you did your thing, well done, or whatever, here's your gold watch or your singlet or whatever, congratulations, see you later. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not that you don't get no gold watch.
But I think, there's a number of things, like, you know, when the high performance started in 2003, it was all about getting the boxers in the best possible shape and the best possible frame of mind to win medals and succeed in the international stage. And that's what we achieved. But what else did we do to that athlete? We didn't really do anything else. We didn't educate them. We didn't prepare them for retirement or for the aftermath. And that was the downfall, I think, of the high performance. It was a fantastic idea to go off and win medals, which we did do for over a decade. But there's still no solid structure in place to look after athletes. This goes across the board, for especially Olympians who sacrifice so much to try and get to the ultimate goal, which is Olympic Games. But then to be told then if they fail to qualify for the next one, or if through injury or through deselection, they're just left off and they walk off into the wilderness on their own and they have nothing to show for it. And I don't think that's good enough. As a society, as a country, I don't think we look after our Olympians in a fair way. And you're right what you're saying about younger lads going professional at a much younger age. We see it now in the boxing shows around the country. The amount of young lads that are making their pro debuts at 17, 18, 19, they haven't really learned their sport. They haven't been schooled properly. Because it is hard to become an Olympian, believe it or not, Ger. It's a long, hard slog, and Andy will know that. Andy knows it very well. So people are weighing up their options. Will I hang around to try and get qualification for Olympic Games? But there's not really the show after it. So what I'd like to see is the Irish Sports Council putting some kind of a mechanism in place where if you want to be an Olympian, we'll train you to be the Olympian, the boxer, but you have to take up this kind of an education system as well and marry the two together and make it compulsory for an athlete to get educated while they compete. Because it is true, there's plenty of time to be schooled and to train at the same time.
Obviously, it's coming from a completely different demographic background, but talking to one of the young rugby players recently who has played for Ireland, he's still in college and he's going to do his business course, which is normally a 3 or 4 year course over 6 or 7 years. And you just go, you do your credits, you go to the lecturer and say, here, listen, I just got picked for Ireland, so I'm not going to be able to do my assignment. And they're like, okay, grand. You just make it up over a period of time. Like, obviously, rugby has the wherewithal and the connections and, like, it's, you know, to put those in place overnight. But if the right questions are asked by the right people within all Olympic sports in Ireland, you could easily do that and have that system in place.
Yeah, and I know it's done in other countries, you know, and it's done in Cuba, which is, you know, we'd be fairly more developed nation than Cuba, you know, and like across the board in other countries it's done. The fighters training, the camp is usually in a university and they do the schooling in between. But I think it is, you know, I think even like, I would encourage any young boxer to try and seek education while even professional, because up to a few years ago, like myself and Mike got married and we couldn't get a mortgage. You know, it's not a steady career. It could be over tomorrow morning, and where do you go? Like, no bank is going to loan you money. So like there has to be some pathways, or at least, you know, for young athletes to get an education while they go, not just to be.
I think you're right too about you can't force people to do it, but you can say, look, this is your option and we strongly recommend it. We feel that it's actually going to make you a better fighter. That there's a story in the Telegraph today about I think it's Richmond Rugby Club in England who are at championship level, and they've no full-time players. They want players who are going off and doing a day job, train twice a week and play at the weekend, because they feel that those people are better people and they're doing this because they love it, as opposed to those rugby players who are completely obsessed about it. And now, whether or not that's sustainable for everybody, right? It's probably a one-off, and again, like, they're all bankers in the city, so, you know, or students in Oxford. It's grand for them. Life is, they won the lottery when they got born, so it's grand. But like, there's definitely a way of doing this where you can encourage people. Yeah,
no, definitely. Like, you know, it comes back to that whole thing of talking to athletes when they're in their mid-teens to say, what does retirement look like to you? And asking the question back then, because if I had someone come into me when I was 15 or 16 and said that, well, to me, I would just had my blinkers on and I just wanted to get to an Olympic Games. There was no aftermath, there was no afterthought. And that's a dangerous place to be, because if you put all your eggs in the one basket like I did, and you're right, Andy, you can't walk into a bank with an Olympic medal or any kind of medal and say, look, I need a mortgage. And that's the frightening thing about it. So when you fall off that cliff and that whole, I suppose, loss of identity, you're saying to yourself, what the hell do I do now? And you talk about the Italian boxing team, the Germans, they're all in the police force or in the army. So they're working part-time as policemen, and they go off then and they go to their training camps and their world and European championships. There's always there's always an income coming in, and then there's a job then when they retire. That's like something that could be brought in here for boxers, something like that to help them along their journey, because, like I said, once you put in your time, your 10 years is up or whatever, and you get the pat on the back, that's just not good enough.
I think that whole question of identity is starting to become something that people are talking about a bit more as well. That there's a book out, Paul Burns, who was the Sunday Game editor for 8 years, has done these interviews with a bunch of people who have just retired, and Brawley quoted this in the paper at the weekend, so not particularly original on my part to bring it up, but he did say that Tony McCoy, the jockey, was like, a sportsman is the only career where you die twice. You die when you finish your career, and then obviously you die like normal human beings as well at the end. This is now starting to become part of like, people realise that it's not necessarily a good thing to dedicate your life the entire time to one thing in the pursuit of something, because who the hell are you, and what type of person do you become if that's all you have in your life? Exactly, and like, it is, if you're associated with a sport for so long, and all of a sudden it's over, there's a grieving process that has to happen. It's like a death in the family, and like, you have to, I suppose you have to separate yourself, and there's no point dabbing with the sport and sitting on the fence saying, will I or won't I, or will I come back, maybe have one more fight, because a lot of boxers do that. You come back and have that one more professional fight, or amateur, seniors or whatever, and it's dangerous. Okay, I went over to Africa all right and had a bit of a show, but I'm not making any comebacks. I'm done. I'm out 5 years, but it's that initial phase where you say to yourself, am I making the right decision here? And it's even harder then when you have nothing to fall back onto. So I had to go back into college. I got a diploma then. I went on to do a degree. That's hard stuff for someone that has had left school and has no interest in school, to go back into the school setting, in a classroom and having to write essays and do a thesis. Frightening stuff where this could be done while you're competing. So I could have made the smooth transition out of the sport. And that's what I'm saying all the time, is to try and make that transition a bit more easier for athletes. You were laughing at that.
Oh yeah, just for the fact, will I or won't I? Yeah, hanging around at the end of your career, but we'll see.
Go on.
No, like to me, like, I don't want to. I won't just say this because you're on the line, Ken. But like, why isn't Kenneth our national coach, our national number 2 coach? Like, why isn't he even for the years of service he put into the IABA and high performance? No Olympic silver medal, arguably, like, to me, won the final. Fought a Chinese boxer in China, in Beijing, was never going to get the result. To me, he should be gold medalist, and he should be our number 2 coach. He knows as much as anybody in the country about boxing. He's been there and done that. He's been to the highest heights in boxing, and personally in his life he's had some ups and downs, and he's come out and he's got a degree in counselling. So I don't see anybody else better qualified to be the number 2 coach. But like, if they haven't got the foresight to employ Kenneth as a coach, and get him ready to replace Zaw in how many every years until Zaw wants to do it. I don't know what hope have we got in educating young boxers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't even have that kind of foresight. I don't know.
Sure. I retired in 2012 after I was beaten by Joe Ward for the 3rd time, and I come into the National Stadium, into the gym, and I was speaking to Billy Walsh and Zor at the time. I said, look, I'm wrapping up now, I'm done now. What's the story on getting a bit of a coaching job here? He says, no problem, we'll look into it. And they were still waiting on someone from the office to give them the all clear. So a week in came, another week passed. I said, look, I can't hang around here. And I left. I walked away from the boxing because I felt I was used a bit, I put in so many years and there was nothing to fall back on. So I walked away from boxing. And I went back in, as I mentioned there, I went back into the college setting. which was hard for the next 4 years. I got a degree over, but I would always love to go back into coaching. And Andy Lee is right. Why don't the association and the high performance employ their past boxers, people that have learned through the system, have learned from Zor, have learned exactly how the structure works, and put that back into the system instead of, bringing in these people that have, not that they have no experience, but they don't know the experience of the high performance setup. We lost Billy, we lost Eddie Bulger. They're two good coaches. Zor is on his way out, as in his coaching career is coming to an end after Tokyo, I'd say. So who's going to replace all these lads? But there's no one in place to actually grab hold of that high performance. And the likes of myself, Andy Lee, Darren O'Neill, Eric Donovan, people that have come through the system would be ideal for that setting, but they just don't think the same way as we do, unfortunately.
And are you a good technical coach? I mean, pardon my ignorance, and I presume that you've picked up loads, but Eric made the point a little bit earlier on in our video that some people get coached by really good coaches and that's just an experience they have, and then some people get coached by really good coaches and they're sponges and they soak everything up. Do you want to be that type of person who is the sponge soaking stuff up and passing on that information?
I think from my time in the high performance right through, I was one of the longest serving boxers in the high performance under Zor. I feel I've learned an awful lot from Zor, Anthony, and I would love to be able to pass that on to the next up and coming lads. I've worked with a bit with Eric and I've worked with a lot of other boxers, but just on a voluntary basis. And as you say, Ger, you can be a volunteer all you want, but that's not going to pay your mortgage either. There's plenty of lads down in the stadium that would help all, flat out around the clock, but that's not good enough. I want to be a paid employee.
Yeah. Like, I have to say, the three of us were having a chat recently enough, and you were talking about your life as a counsellor, and it struck me like that also suits you. You're embedded in the community, you seem to enjoy it, you understand how to deal with issues on a local level.
Like, I'm sitting on my couch here now, the baby's up on the cot with the iPad. I go out this evening now and I can do a few bits this evening. So it's kind of flexible and I can walk around the hours, It's not a 9 to 5 where I'm stuck in an office or I'm stuck in a placement. And that suits me. I like to be flexible. I like to be able to ponder around the place and do me bits and pieces. But, at the end of the day, it's about dealing with people. It's having people skills.
Yeah.
And over the last 4 years through college and whatever else, I feel I've obtained an awful lot of knowledge and an awful lot of experience about how to deal with people. And on a normal eye-to-eye level. And I think that's what needs to be brought into coaching as well. It's that personal level, getting the connection with the athletes and try and keep them on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, that's one side of it. Obviously, the coaching, there'll always be the great technical coaches that you can import, but that's it. That's having the philosophy behind it.
And the personal experiences, what Conlan has. I think he makes no secret. He's maybe 7 or 8 years sober now, and that's also, he's been there. He's been to the dark side, and he's come back, and he's dealing with it every day. You know what I mean? So. To guide young guys who are at 18 and 19 and 20 can easily go astray, can stay on the course of becoming, working towards an Olympic Games, or go off and be a young guy, what young guys do, nightclubs and all that. So I think there's no better suitable candidate than Kenneth Egan.
Yeah, it is interesting that maybe the high performance hasn't had that reinfusion of the people who were the first people through. All the other sports, it's like, sport goes professional, that bunch of rugby players become the new bunch of coaches. The systems in GAA revolutionised those young managers. Those players who experience that are the ones who kind of come through and change it. But it hasn't quite happened just yet in boxing. There's still this disconnect.
Yeah, and it needs to be like we're talking about, athletes and looking after athletes. I think while you're training, there should be some option for education, because once you're in that program, there should be. But life is hard for everybody, and there's no one's going to take you under their wing and make everything okay for you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work and push for yourself.
You think that all those boxers have, to get to the point where they're in the high performance unit, they've got something, they've got inner drive, they've got steel, they've come through really tough circumstances in some cases.
Yeah, but it's the desire to box. It's not a desire to sit down and read a book and write it.
Could anybody have convinced you that you needed to go to college while you were
Funny enough, Gary Keegan was instrumental. When I was going to stay amateur after the 2004 Olympics, part of the deal was education in Griffin College.
Right.
But I know Michael Conlan and Paddy Barnes have both done a degree in sports business, I think, something along those lines. While they were come up to the Rio Olympics.
Right.
But I think that was very much done on their own backs with the help of Dave McHugh.
Okay.
You might know him, who was like an agent who was working with the box at the time. So there is there has been put up. It's not like they never thought about it, but it's just about implemented it. And
it's putting the structures in place. It's an automatic
program, and saying this is a requirement when you come onto the team. This is what you're going to have to do.
In the rugby academies, it's pretty much a requirement. Like, I think it's heavily frowned upon if you're not doing that stuff, because they're like, well, you're not really willing to put the effort into yourself. Maybe you're not really going to put the effort into your career.
But like I say, it's a different demographic, not across the board, but mostly when it comes to boxing, that they're from tougher backgrounds and. There's no onus on education, but there has to be now. I think that in this day and age, there needs to be.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff as ever, Kenneth. Before we let you go, I want to ask you for your top 3 pound for pound in Irish boxing at the moment. Bit of controversy about Andy's earlier on that he left out Michael Conlan.
Yeah, well, he still has a lot to prove yet in the pro game. Okay, he's world champion as an amateur, but are we talking amateurs or pros, or what?
Pros,
here? Pros, yeah. So you'll have to go with. I suppose I would agree with Andy. Number 1 would be Burnett, world champion, and then it's a toss-up between Frampton and Katie is right. Yeah, I'd stick Katie second, and Carl Frampton 3. Andy, sorry about that. I had to leave you out there. You're
no worries.
A bit for a while, yeah. You're about 85 kilos there, are you?
Yeah. Tell me, who'd be your top amateur top 3 in Ireland?
Top 3. Well, it'd have to be Michael Conlan, number 1.
No, still amateur, active amateurs.
Obviously, it'd be Joe Ward.
Yeah.
Joe Ward. Who else is there?
Joe Ward.
Yeah. He's on a different level now at the minute, you know.
Yeah, he is really world class.
Yeah. It's just crazy the talent he has and how easy he makes things look. That's what makes me sick. So effortless goes through competitions and win a medal. So yeah, Joe was flying at the minute, and he's still so young. So it's great to see.
Could he make it in the pro game?
He could. Yeah, has he got the discipline and the dedication to commit to train for 12 rounds? We don't know, but he definitely has the talent. Yeah, and he seems to be committed now for the next Olympic cycle.
He'd be a light heavy if he turned pro, would he? Or
yeah, light heavy.
He wouldn't come down even further?
I think he's too big for super middleweight.
Yeah, okay. And then Brad Maxley on Twitter wants to know, of all the current Irish pro boxers, who do you feel has the most potential? Obviously Burnett has unbelievable potential, but is Michael
Conlan be good? Michael Conlan be good. And I'm going to go with Lomachenko the weekend as well, lads.
Yeah.
Too big, just too big and too strong. Yeah.
Kenny, you would have saw both of them up close and personally more than I did, because you and Lomachenko would have competed in all the same competitions. In terms of skill, who if they were the same weight, pound for pound, who would you have picked?
I still think Lomachenko. He's better movement around the ring. Fantastic footwork, great balance. His biomechanics are perfect, and he can punch. Rigondeaux, fantastic. But I just think, as you mentioned earlier on, Andy, he's just that little bit older. And even though he hasn't been as active in recent years, I just think he's past his best, and he's been putting his ass as well in his last fight, did he, or the fight previous? So I think Lomachenko's going to get him at the right time here now, and I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be centre of the ring stuff.
Yeah, I hope it is. That's exactly what boxing needs to round off one of its great years.
Yeah.
Kind of great stuff. Thanks a million. We'll let you take the iPad back off the kid.
Good luck.
See you later.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and it would be amazing to have somebody like him back in, because if you know what it's like, if you're 15, 16, 17 and all you want to do is party, if you have some lad coming and going, you shouldn't do that. If you've got somebody like Kenneth Egan going, I did that, and you don't need to do it, or you can do it in moderation for a while.
Or if you're a 15, 16-year-old kid coming into who do you look up to? Who are your idols? Who do you want to emulate? And if someone who's a simple mentalist telling you, look, get up and run, get up and don't throw your jab like that, throw your jab like this, who are you going to listen to? Like, I think this current system is where they have ZAW and they have coaches coming in from different clubs around the country, training with them for different competitions, but then they're in and out.
Yeah.
And that's good, because it will improve coaching around the country in general, and it will give them coaches some experience. But I think there still needs to be somebody there who the boxers know, look up to and respect, and has also got like invaluable experience like Kenneth has.
Is Bernard that person, or is he kind of at a level above it even?
Well, yeah, Bernard is that person who they would look up to and listen to, and hugely respect Bernard. But I don't know if he's on the floor day today working with the lads. He seems, I don't know, when I was, he's definitely keeping an eye on the thing. He's definitely involved and speaking with the lads a lot.
Yeah, but his job is so big that he can't be on the floor every day, and actually you want the coaches on the floor every day to be able to have the same message as his kind of overall structure.
Yeah, and the thing with Kenneth is he knows every trick in the book, where if one of the young boxers is not pulling his weight, or you know, do something outside of boxing,
because he's done it all.
Yeah, he'd be easy to identify it, you know, and sometimes maybe that gets away from Zaw, or you know, because he's not as as like involved in the lifestyle as much. He's just strictly coaching. Yeah,
for sure. Dave McKee's been in touch on Twitter to say, true and so honest, you need a dual career and balance between life and high performance sport. Martin on Twitter says he'd flip the first two. That's Burnett and Frampton. Burnett is unbelievable, and like Frampton, he has plenty of time for the fans, as seen in the stadium last Saturday. There's nothing in it, he says, in the top three. Kenny Egan, unsung hero, says Jay Daly. If they don't sort out the high performance very soon, the pro game is just going to tank in this country, and it's already started. I think maybe it's the other way around, that if they don't sort out the high performance and manage to keep all their best talent, then everybody's going to go pro much quicker. Getting Joe Ward to commit was absolutely vital, because you can build a program around somebody like that.
Yeah, and I think it suits Joe Ward as well to stay amateur, because he has a couple of kids, he's very close with his family, and to be here in Ireland as a professional is not ideal. He would definitely have to travel probably to America.
Yeah.
So I know there were some offers for him in America, but I'm glad he stayed. He's our biggest hope for a gold medal, and it's a genuine hope. Like he has a real chance of becoming Olympic champion. Could be the first male Olympic gold medalist since Michael Carruth.
Yeah,
and it would be a great achievement. Like I'm a bit shocked. Like he won a world silver and a European gold this year, and not a whole lot made about it. You know, not many people came out to the. From what I heard, not many journalists came out to the airport to welcome him home, and
I think there's still this stink of the failure at Rio around boxing generally, and because the politics of the IABA was front page news for so long, and because there was the whole, we've got two presidents and two constitutions, and the ministers calling them in and they're not showing up, like that brought the whole sport into disrepute, and it did take away a little bit of the attention.
It took some of the shine off the good stuff they're doing.
Yeah, but I guess in fairness, it has been a pretty decent year. Kevin Byrne has been on Twitter to say top three is close to being nailed on. Real debate is at places 5 to 10. I'd have Andy Lee in at number 4, says Kevin, and that's good enough to get you a mention.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll tell it later on. Yeah.
Right, that is pretty much all we've got time for on today's show. My thanks to Andy for being with us today. Thanks very much, and enjoy your Christmas. We'll see you much before that, of course. Do you like get even higher than 85 kilos over Christmas now, or is it like?
I'm worried about where it's going to go after the Christmas. Sorry, you'll see me in the new year, and I don't know. We'll see how we get on.
Yeah, okay. Well, best of luck with that, whatever happens. Right, as ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us during the day at Off the Ball on Twitter. Make sure you turn your Twitter notifications on for whenever we go live on Periscope, and then it'll just be a matter of clicking the button whenever this show comes on. You can do the same on Facebook. We'll notify you, send you a direct message whenever the show is live on Facebook, and you can do the same on the YouTube channel by subscribing. So it's youtube.com/Off the Ball. As I said, that's pretty much all we've got time for. A brilliant show on the radio tonight with Joe. That full-length Paul Flynn interview is going out, and he's just a really interesting character who has lived a pretty good life so far, and there's plenty more life in him yet. Kenny Cunningham is going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. We'll see you then. Good luck.